My email blew up at approximately 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time yesterday. There was a dozen or so that came in succession, each with a simple message that had been hammered into the subject line by apparently angry fingers. They all boiled down to one basic idea: burn Gillette to the fucking ground and then take a leak on the ashes. A fast click on one of the links provided in those emails took me to YouTube and opened up to a solid 1 minute and 48 seconds of Gillette trashing the very male demographic that had made the company iconic and valuable enough that Procter & Gamble paid $57 billion to acquire it. I know, that should force you to issue an incredulous gasp. It seems unbelievable that Gillette would do the equivalent of an oil company taking humiliating shots at people who drive SUVs. But today, even that somehow seems disturbingly possible. Welcome to the world of modern advertising and a minute 48 of gratuitous bashing, stereotyping, and virtue signaling from a company more interested in bragging to the world how woke it is than in showing any semblance of respect to its customers. At the time I started this, the video, which Gillette titled "We Believe the Best Men Can Be, Gillette Short Film," had about 865,000 views with 12,000 upvotes and, disastrously for the maker of razor blades, 10 times that many or 122,000 downvotes. The comments contained the articulated version of the voting, with commenters at a bare minimum 10-to-1 ratio uttering expressions like boycott, never again, and straight to the trash can, in cyclical repetition. The not-so-subtle "fuck Gillette" was also scattered about here and there. Far less common and looking totally out of place amidst the throwing of rotten tomatoes was the occasional expression of support. Almost always from a woman, of course, women who undoubtedly took great pleasure in Gillette's dedicated effort to lowering the relative worth of men. Let's take a closer look at what the newfangled minority found so enjoyable, and what all manner of normal human beings found so off-putting. We start with a series of images of men gazing into the mirror. The message with this is simple. Men, most of them white, taking an introspective and, more importantly, sobering look at themselves. This is reinforced with audio in the background using newsy-sounding, bombastic clips that burst out a mention of the Me Too movement and gives equally strident mention to serious social problems like bullying and masculinity. After establishing that men need to take a good, hard look at themselves, at the fundamental problem, their masculine nature, the next thing on the menu, of course, is to explain why. That begins with a gang of boys bursting violently through an old-school image of a woman kissing a man's cheek, showing him affection and approval. That image is highly reminiscent of another one found in a 1980s Gillette commercial, linked, from a time when their advertising actually depicted men, their customers, in a positive light. Moving on, the band of thugs, all of them white, of course, then rampage through a living room, hurling verbal abuse, while a mother protectively holds a child that is assumedly weaker and different. The inference here is that the child is gay, or a sissy, as they're calling him. Meanwhile, the boys, who of course are not only white but straight, remain harmful and dangerously out of control. "Freak!" they scream as the woman clutches the weeping boy. Then cut immediately to more old-school images. This time, a cartoon caricature of men in an exaggerated reaction to a sexually attractive woman. A truly fitting start at getting to the meat of the matter. For from this point forward, most of what we will see of men will be these caricatures, boorish reductions, non-persons, humanity removed and stripped to the stereotypical essentials so as to be fit for harsh judgment without a moment's reservation. We see the TV cartoons transformed into flesh and blood men as impressionable white boys sit and absorb the lessons dispassionately, soaking up the hatred from their adult role models. We see audiences, purely white and mostly men, watch on and howl as abuse goes unchecked in front of their eyes. We see the corporate boardroom, equally white and male save the one poor female victim, self-worth on the rocks because of mansplaining, another favorite in the feminist lexicon of imagined slights. We see two boys scrapping, as boys are prone to do, naturally and developmentally sound. And then a row of male characters, almost all white, of course, chanting in unison that boys will be boys, with the ideologically driven implication that it isn't true, that for some reason it's the wrong thing to say. And of course, that is the message here, pure and simple. Men are wrong, not just about what they say or what they think, but to their core, to the fiber of their being, they are flawed. And of course, corporate America, with its propensity to fold like a cheap suit in the face of pressure from the social justice crowd, is now the agent of their change, their transformation. And of course, the old, defective version of them is shamed out of existence. That process, the man training, relies on the corporate media. We begin with a screen full of feminist ideologue Anna Kasparian and shift into a collage of generic media images, all breaking news scenes designed to inform us in stern tones of the male re-engineering to come. Hashtag #MeToo is here. Hashtag Time's Up is here. The Inquisition has begun. The corporatocracy, hashtag the new boss, is here. And you can bet that when they're done, the laughter will stop. We will fucking behave as instructed. The imagery is unambiguous. They go on to show us examples of how that will happen, largely by black men telling other men how to act and intervening on white men when they act according to their depraved nature, which is to say, when they show sexual or romantic interest in a woman. Gillette informs us that the new normal, white male sheep who behave like docile eunuchs, is already starting to happen, and that some men, some, mind you, are starting to act that way. But some, as they haughtily remind us, is not enough. We will all defer to our feminist masters and their corporate muscle. They then take us through a series of images of men doing what they do all the time, protecting and providing for children, acting like it's something really rare. These are largely the same kinds of images they used in the 1980s to depict typical examples of their customers, back when the only goal they had was to sell some razor blades. It's perhaps the most disgusting and insulting part of the whole disgusting and insulting effort. Somewhere along the line, the idea of selling razor blades based on the quality of shave they gave you fell along the wayside. Maybe it was when millennials and Generation Z, robbed of their fathers, made role models of the corporatocracy. After all, they've largely embraced Silicon Valley as the arbiter of their speech, and for that matter, their thought. So why not a Gillette that defines your manhood? Is that why we now get a Gillette trying to sell men's hygiene products to women who don't buy them, but who must approve of the company selling them? Feminist mothers make fathers of corporations as though it's the answer to gangs. It makes perfect sense in a convoluted world that still can't see fathers with authority as a part of the picture. But it isn't all women Gillette is trying to please. They obviously don't care much about the opinion of women who actually like men. Nope, just the women who hate, who can't stand masculinity, and who want to shame men into groveling for a spot under the nearest stiletto. That's Gillette's new, real customer base, and I wish them luck with it, even if it doesn't seem like the most intelligent ad campaign for men's products that I've ever seen. For something decent to follow up with this, Forbes magazine, linked below, has just released an article titled Why Gillette's New Ad Campaign is Toxic, where they reveal a bit more about Gillette's dwindling market share, losing ground to companies like the Dollar Shave Club. I guess what we may be seeing is the death throes of a dying giant, a last-ditch effort to retain market share by appealing to racist feminists and soy boys. Whatever is happening, I plan on making popcorn and watching what happens, shopping anywhere but Procter & Gamble. Before closing, I do have a good note to report to you today regarding Subscribestar. As many of you know, Subscribestar was launched as an alternative to Patreon after that platform went crazy removing accounts of free speech promoters like Sargon of Akkad and Milo Yiannopoulos. Soon after Subscribestar launched, they came under attack by social justice activists, and they lost their payment processor. For weeks, they've been working on getting a new payment system. This morning, I got the following email from them, which I will read in its entirety. Hi, Paul Elam, they say. You have been selected for the very first batch of creators who can start accepting new subscribers using our brand new processing system. All new subscribers will be charged instantly upon subscription and recursively recharged in 30 days. Meanwhile, all existing subscribers will be charged later after the integration is finished. Thank you for your patience. Truly yours, Subscribestar.com support team. I was actually very excited to get this email. Needless to say, I want to be able to receive support for my work on that platform, but more importantly, an alternative to Patreon that is immune to attacks by social justice warriors is badly needed by all people who value free speech and the open exchange of ideas. If you are considering support of this channel on either Patreon or Subscribestar, I urge you to consider Subscribestar as the better option of the two. Let's support them and their good efforts by supporting content creators who host content there. And that is it for this talk. As always, I hope you've enjoyed, even if you haven't, and we'll see you next time.